Hey everybody, I wanted to give you an update of something that's going to happen here in the future. I'm not sure how near it is because it's a work in progress. I'm working on a new series in the background. There's a new hero coming. It's going to be a series different than anything like I've done before. It's going to be a detective series, but based out of a small town. Picture Dean Koontz writing a detective novel, and you kind of have an idea where I'm going with it. It's going to be a little bit out there, but very intense. And it's set in the small college town of Norman, Oklahoma. Norman sits just south of me. If you're a college football fan, you've probably heard of the Oklahoma Sooners, or a part of the Big 12. So it's a pretty good size university set into a small town. And so their police force there has a unique dynamic there, in that it's small town policing, but it's got some big town aspects too, especially with it dealing with a university that's the size that it is. So in order for me to get my head into the process of what it's like to be a cop for this new character, I participated in it's called a CPA, or a community policing academy. Basically, it's a 15-week police academy, not really a police academy, of civilians that get a crash course on what it's like to be a police officer. We do everything from classroom time, absorbing policies and procedures and the law, to techniques and strategies and thinking processes. We've heard everything from officers in all walks of the department, to include training officers out at the range, the SWAT team members, regular everyday police officers on the street, people who work in crime scene, people who work as the detectives, and even I got an insight into how internal affairs works, at least in our small neck of the woods. It was a very eye-opening experience. It gave me a very deep appreciation for these officers and what they have to do. They even threw us in with no training into some pretty intense situations, so we could kind of grasp what it is that a cop has to deal with. Last night, for example, they put a gun in our hands, and it was a training weapon. It was painted in blue. It's basically a paint gun. Fires ammunition just like a regular gun does, but the bullets fire paint pellets instead. And I got to pretend to be a cop. I went with an officer to a house where we got a call. The woman was outside. She was very distraught. She was the homeowner. She was the mother. She had a son that lived with her, 20 some odd years of age, with mental conditions. Supposedly we had been there many times before, and she was scared because he was threatening to kill himself. So we had to go try to de-escalate that situation. I had to go try to de-escalate that situation. I failed. I'm pretty sure the person inside wanted to die. I went into a house that had no electricity, so we're calling out with no answer to a person that's supposedly inside there that may be a threat to himself or to others, and there's no answer, and all we have is our flashlights and our weapons. And finally he just pops out of nowhere, and he's talking crazy, and we're trying to talk him down, and made him take his hands out of his pockets, and he was combative and aggressive, and why are we there? And then I noticed he had a weapon. It was kind of tucked back around his hip, kind of underneath his shirt, but I noticed it. So I asked him if he had it, and he said he did, and what did I want to do about it? It was really intense. And in the background, there's these officers that are there, part of the training process. They're wearing these orange vests, and they're just observers, and you can't engage with them, and you can't ask them any questions, and they're just watching you, and they're filming the whole thing too. It was a high pressure situation for me, even though the situation was completely fake and contrived. But in the end, the guy put his hand on his weapon, and I'm screaming at him. And at one point, I shamefully admit, I even cussed the guy and called him a very dirty word to tell him to try to take his hand off the weapon. At which point, he pulled the weapon out, and I shot him. He didn't die. he rolled around the ground, still wouldn't release the weapon. We're trying to position ourselves so that, the weapon's not aimed at us, and, I'm prepared to shoot him again. And it was just a crazy situation. And all the training that we received, that was just one example. It was just a very eye-opening experience. If you're a member of the force, if you're one of the guys and gals that form that thin blue line, I really appreciate your service. You don't get the respect that you deserve. But doing what I did there, going back on my train of thought, doing what I did there was in an effort to prepare myself and put my mind into the thinking process to write a story that I think is going to be quite a bit different than the Slaughter series has been. I'm not abandoning the Slaughter series. I'm deep in the middle of the 5th book. But when I get to the end of the 5th book, we're going to pause, and we're going to put out this other series as well. There'll be 3 books. I already have the general concepts of what they're going to be. And like I said, it will be a detective series, but picture Harry Bosch written by Dean Koontz, and you can see how it's going to go a little bit off the rails. It's also going to be a lot darker than anything that you've gotten from me before, because we're going to be dealing with psychopaths and things of that nature. And those people tend to behave a bit different than the villains in the books that I have been writing. But I just wanted you to know that I'm working hard. It's, like I said, 15 weeks of trying to understand what a police officer is, and that training is not complete. There will be a secondary class, a more focused class on some key elements, and then I get 80 hours of ride-along time with police officers on their day-to-day shift. So I'll be able to sit in the car for a 10-hour shift, and I'll be able to do that 8 times. And hopefully that will even give me a deeper understanding. I've made a lot of contacts. I've got all kinds of cops on my speed dial now, working in various aspects of the Norman Police Department, and so that I can ask questions. Even have the DA on my speed dial. He's more than willing to give me information. So hopefully it'll be very realistic in a far-fetched sort of way, if that makes any sense. Anyway, thanks you guys for being a fan. I just wanted to give you an update where we are. Peace out. Bye.